Okay, continue for treasuries. Okay. Treasuries, which is consists of liquidity risk, asset and liability management risk, and hedging risk. Kita tengok dulu what is treasury risk. Sekejap, sekejap. Okay. For treasury risk arising from the management of the financial resources of the financial institutions. Sumber utama kita lah. Gitu. Jadi kita tengok okay. Liquidity risk. Liquidity risk, which Islamic financial institutions have limited opportunity to access the external fund to meet their obligation. Worst case, when the Islamic bank shortage of long-term fund, as they only rely on the current account which callable on demand. Kalaulah kita tengok duit dekat bank, normally kita nak reserve dia, okay, tapi masalahnya ialah dia kita tak boleh nak simpan lama dan banyak lah sebab biasanya customer akan boleh keluarkan duit at any time. Okay. There are two types of liquidity where the financial system is constrained by illiquid asset to meet its liability and financial obligation, and then lack of access to borrow or risk fund at reasonable costs like conventional bank. Sebabnya problem of interbank, Islamic interbank money market. Biasanya kita buat pinjaman, let's say kalau kita shortage, kita pinjaman dengan bank-bank lain kan, dengan menggunakan Islamic interbank money market. Untuk kecairan, kita ada masalah sikit lah. Maksudnya dari segi limited. Kita tidak boleh nak cairkan aset to meet liability and financial obligations. Okay, because limited short-term financial instrument that can be traded in secondary market. So it is actually kita punya risiko lah di dalam liquidity untuk mencairkan kita punya duit yang ada, aset yang berisiko di situ. Okay. Okay, cara bagaimana untuk overcome dia adalah first, the introduction of sukuk can provide the development of secondary market. Second, the establishment of an institution framework to address the liquidity problem, International Islamic Financial Market and Liquidity Management Center. Okay, ini adalah untuk mengelakkan daripada liquidity risk ni berlaku, iaitu kita perkenalkan suku. Okay, mungkin di situ kita boleh buatlah syarat-syarat dia macam mana nak cairkan, adakah dia ni strict ke macam mana lah. Asset and liability management, which is asset and liability management, is balance sheet mismatch risk. Theoretically, it results from the difference in maturity terms and the conditions of a bank's portfolio and its asset and liability. Difference in maturity terms, contohnya liability side, receive short-term fixed deposit, asset side, investment in long-term security or giving long-term loan. Okay, in terms of condition, liability side, dia guaranteed predetermined interest rate plus guaranteed capital for deposits. Asset side, no guaranteed on profit. Ini adalah contoh-contoh lah. Okay, contoh-contoh di mana asset and liability management berisikonya di situ. Maksudnya di sini kalau sekiranya kita tengok dari segi set of liability, okay, kita tengok receive short-term fixed deposit. Kalau asset side, investment in long-term security or giving long-term loan. Ini adalah benda-benda yang kita kena bear in our mind that kalau dari segi asset, liability side adalah berbeza dengan conventional. So, kita ada risiko-risiko tertentu lah. Theoretically, an Islamic bank less exposed to asset liability mismatch as compared to conventional. This is based on the assumption that all the depositors received by Islamic Bank are based on mudharabah principle. So any profit or loss are passed through from asset side to liability side. That means any negative shock on the asset side will be absorbed shareholders, depositors and investors. Sebenarnya kononnya lebih senang sebenarnya. Okay, sebab kita tengok daripada investment from the investors. However, despite of it, Turkey has lessened the burden of ALM risk of an Islamic bank. In the real practice, the risk sharing and pass-through features are not fully followed. Okay, sebab kita berhadapan dengan burden di dalam ALM. As a result, it creates the unwanted asset and liability mismatch risk. Okay. What are the factors contribute ALM risk? The Islamic bank are not really share the profit and loss with the depositors. The practice of profit distributions, even if there is no or low profit, creates strains on the shareholders' equity. Dia tak share betul-betul lah. Maksudnya di sini ketelusan lah juga ya. Heavy dependence on the short-term trade finance which give lower profit as compared to partnership based on agreements such as mudharabah dan juga musyarakah. Okay, hedging risk. Hedging risk ni adalah making an investment to reduce the risk of adverse price movement in an asset. Investors use this strategy when they are unsure of what the market will do and to avoid market fluctuation. Okay. Benda ni semua adalah untuk mengelakkan risiko. Jadi investors menggunakan strategi ni apabila dia tak sure lah apa yang akan berlaku dan dia nak mengelakkan daripada fluctuate market. Hedging risk is a risk of failure to mitigate and manage different types of risks. This is due to several factors such as non-availability of derivative product to hedging the risk, illiquid of the financial instrument. Okay, non-exist and non-active secondary market. Maksudnya di sini faktor-faktor ni semua adalah merupakan salah satu daripada risiko berlakunya hedging ni. Okey, kemudian kita pergi kepada governance risk. Dia lebih kepada pentadbiran lah. Okey, yang pertama operational risk, fiduciary risk, transparency risk and then syariah risk. Okay, and then last one is reputation risk. Governance risk ni adalah risk arising from failure in governing the institutions, negligence in conducting business and meeting contractual obligation, weak internal and external institution environment, legal risk whereby banks are unable to enforce their contract. Operation risk ni berlaku bila risk of loss result daripada inadequacy of failure of internal process as related to people and system of the external risk. Expect the increased operational risk in Islamic bank, which is cancellation risk in the non-binding murabahah and istisna contract. Failure of the internal control system to detect and manage potential problem. Okay. Difficulties in enforce Islamic contract. Need to maintain and manage commodity inventories. Cost and risk. Semua ni adalah apabila yang melibatkan operation, jadi kita tengok kepada risiko-risiko dia. Okey, risiko-risiko boleh berlaku ni yang ni lah. Kadang-kadang kita tengok masalah bila kita berhadapan dengan non-binding like murabahah and istisna contoh lah. Kemudian kita tak boleh nak control in terms of internal, kadang-kadang external pun ada problem jugalah. Okay, menyebabkan risiko tu external for sure lah. But then di dalam pentadbiran Islamic banking tu sendiri, okay, people risk, fraud and incompetence. And then fiduciary risk, which is a person bound to act for another's benefit as a trustee in relation to his beneficiary. The fiduciary may manage the asset to the benefit of the other person rather than for his own profit. Dia buat untuk orang lain. Gitu. The risk that arise from the institution's failure to perform in accordance with explicit and implicit standard applicable to its fiduciary responsibilities lead to the risk of facing legal action from the shareholders. happen when there are divergence between objective investors and shareholders and the actions of the bank. Okay. So di sini kita boleh tengok lah, kadang-kadang orang itu dia buat something which is kata apa dia? Dia dia untuk kepentingan orang lain dan bukannya untuk profit diri sendirilah. Transparency risk. Lack of transparency creating the risk incurred losses due to bad decision based on incomplete and inaccurate information. Kadang-kadang tu kita berhadapan dengan risiko di mana mungkin bank juga tidak telus bagi tahu yang sebenar, keuntungan sebenar, berapa persen kepada investors, shareholders dia. Syariah risk. Tak ada di sini. Mana tah pergi syariah risk ni? Syariah risk ni dia lebih kepada macam mana hukum hakam lah. Hukum hakam, macam mana kita berhadapan dengan sesuatu benda yang kadang-kadang benda tu berubah mengikut kepada zaman lah kan, dan juga kemudahan. Kadang-kadang zaman ni yang terbaru macam ni. Dan kita susah untuk elak benda tu, maka kita buat satu pakatan. Buat sepakat menyatakan macam mana sekiranya bla 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 bla. Reputation risk ni, the risk that the trust of the client of Islamic bank is damaged due to irresponsible actions or behavior of management. Ia disebabkan oleh irresponsible behavior by a single institution that taints and tarnish. Dia kalau disebabkan reputation risk ni, dia menjadi satu kata ada. Sekarang ni lagi lah risiko tu boleh berlaku senang untuk orang nak share. And then that's a lot of fitnah lah sebenarnya. Tapi apabila macam ni, ia menyebabkan reputation dan dia jadi kesan yang besar lah kepada company tersebut. Jadi ianya menyebabkan kalau reputation ni habislah bisnes kita. That's all. Thank you all.